My dad mocked my stutter, then said, "See? This is why no one takes you seriously." So I took a deep breath and read his emails aloud, the ones he didn't know I'd seen. Mom left the room. He followed her out. Neither came back. "See? This is why no one takes you seriously." That's what my dad said, out loud, in front of everyone. And he smiled when he said it. We were at Sunday dinner. My mom had made her usual lemon chicken, my younger brother Jason was scrolling through his phone, and my uncle was rambling about football. I had just started telling them about an interview I got, my first serious shot at a junior analyst role. I stuttered slightly. Just once. Juju junior analyst. That's all it took. My dad leaned back in his chair, tapped his fork against his glass like it was open mic night, and mocked me with a grin. "See? This is why no one takes you seriously." Everyone chuckled. My uncle. Even Jason. My mom looked down at her wine. I froze. But inside, I was already walking to the kitchen. Because I had something he didn't know I had. I came back with his old tablet, one he gave me weeks ago, claiming it was too slow for him. He told me I could use it for school. I barely touched it. Until one night, I had to upload a document and used it out of convenience. It was still logged into his email. I wasn't looking for anything, but I found everything. The inbox was full of messages from someone named Vanessa, a woman he clearly wasn't married to. Romantic, explicit, ongoing, trips, photos, the whole deal. I screenshotted everything, saved it. I didn't even know what I'd do with it at the time, just knew that someday I'd want the truth. Tonight, he handed me the moment. So I sat back down, calmly, looked at my dad, and asked, "Mind if I read something to the table?" He raised an eyebrow. "Practicing your speaking skills." "Sure," I said. Then opened the email. "I missed you last night. Pretending with my husband is killing me. I still wear the necklace you gave me every night." Jason blinked. My uncle stopped chewing. My mom didn't move. I kept reading. "Bring that cologne I like. I hope you still have the photo from the cabin. I think about that night every time I'm alone." I held up the tablet. The email was from a Vanessa.Caldwell address. His work domain. "Is this your assistant?" I asked. Silence. I showed the next email. Vanessa, in lingerie, sitting on a hotel bed. His overnight bag was in the background. The same bag he took on his supposed New York conference. Jason stood up. "Dad?" My dad's voice dropped. "Turn that off. Now." But I wasn't talking to him anymore. I was talking to the version of myself that spent years being humiliated by this man in front of teachers, friends, even dates. The one who was told his voice made people uncomfortable. Who was told to fix it or shut up. My mom stood, quiet, walked out of the room. No words, no glance, just gone. My dad hesitated, then followed. Uncle Bill looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. Jason didn't say a word. And me? I just sat there. Because finally, for once, I wasn't the one who had to explain himself. The tablet sat on my desk for 2 days before I opened that email app again. The first time, I thought maybe it was a fluke. Some spam. A joke. A misclick. My dad wasn't the emotional type. He never said, "I love you" to anyone in this house, let alone through email. But these messages? They were overflowing with affection, passion, lust. They also weren't new. Some dated back over 2 years. 2 full years. At first, I tried to convince myself Vanessa was a fling. Maybe someone he met on a work trip. But then I saw it. A thread titled, "Just tell her." Inside, she was begging him, over and over. "You said you'd tell her by Christmas. I'm tired of being a secret. She deserves to know. My mom. She deserved to know." I clicked on his replies. And that's when I realized. He wasn't planning to come clean. He was stringing Vanessa along. Every message was an excuse. The timing's not right. She's going through a rough patch. Evan's going through something again. That one hit me like a punch in the chest. He was using me, my stutter, my anxiety, my life, as an excuse to lie to the woman he was cheating on and the woman he was cheating with. I remember sitting there for hours that night, just reading. Sometimes I laughed, just from shock. Other times I had to stop and walk away, let my hands cool off because they were shaking. There was one message where Vanessa called my mom a cold corpse of a wife. Another where my dad said, "I feel alive when I'm with you." At home, it's like being in a tomb. The tomb was the home I grew up in. So I made copies. Dozens. Screenshots, backups, a folder hidden on my hard drive, another on a USB in my sock drawer. I wasn't about to bring this up and get gaslit. I'd lived through too much of that already. My dad was good at rewriting history. Not this time. The next weekend, I watched him kiss my mom on the cheek like nothing was wrong. She was sitting on the couch, flipping through a gardening catalog, talking about new rose bushes for spring. He leaned over and said, "Whatever you want, hon. You've earned it." He kissed her on the forehead. Then 10 minutes later, went outside to take a business call. I stood at the top of the stairs and listened. It wasn't business. Yeah, I got your picture. You look incredible. No, she has no idea. She's clueless. My jaw locked. My stomach dropped. And still, I said nothing. Why? Because I wanted him to feel safe, comfortable, unthreatened. I wanted him to let his guard down. Because when I finally spoke, I wanted it to matter. See, when someone like my dad has been underestimating you for your whole life, your voice, your presence, your very existence, there's a kind of twisted power in letting them walk into their own trap. I'd let him build his own gallows with every lie. So when he mocked me at dinner that night, it wasn't just the insult. It was permission. I knew I was done waiting. I didn't even feel nervous. Just ready. That email from the cabin weekend was the perfect one to read out loud. Vanessa mentioned the hotel, the wine, the cologne. I picked it for one reason. It sounded like a bad romance novel. The kind of language my mom would never, in a million years, expect to come out of his mouth. That's why she got up. That's why she left the table without a word. Because in 10 seconds, she realized everything she thought she knew was fake. That's also why he followed her. Because for once, he had to chase her. And not the other way around. After my mom left the room, the silence felt strange. Not heavy, not awkward, just clean. Like someone had opened a window in a smoke-filled room. My dad had followed her, but I didn't stop. I wasn't reading for him anymore. I was reading for everyone else still sitting there. For Jason. For Uncle Bill. For myself. I scrolled to the next email. You'll never have a real life until you cut ties. You said your son is barely functioning. That he can't even hold a conversation in public without falling apart. So what are you holding on to? Guilt. Jason blinked. Wait. What? Uncle Bill raised his eyebrows, finally realizing this wasn't just some fling. This wasn't about love or lust or midlife crisis. This was scorched earth. I kept reading. My voice shook a little, not from nerves, but because I already knew what came next. You shouldn't let your broken toy keep you from being happy. He'll figure it out eventually. Maybe. Jason muttered, Jesus. But I wasn't done. You're not responsible for a stutter, or for the fact that he still lives at home, or for the fact that he can't seem to finish anything he starts. You've carried them long enough. Don't let their failure drag you under. The timestamp? From just a week ago. Jason stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Like maybe he was just realizing this wasn't just about cheating. This was about the rot underneath everything. The version of me my dad showed to someone else. That was the real betrayal. I used to think he was just tough on me. Traditional. Old school. I told myself it was how he motivated me. But this wasn't tough love. This was a man throwing his own kid under the bus to justify his double life. Vanessa, I'm sorry. You're right. I'll talk to her this weekend. Evan's doing better. Might even be looking for work. Progress, I guess. I remembered that weekend. I told him I had an interview. It was the first time I'd seen pride on his face in months. Or I thought I did. Turns out, he wasn't proud. He was just collecting excuses. There was one last email I hadn't read yet. Not in full. It was shorter, but it hit harder than any of them. I just wish you could see what it's like, living with someone who talks like he's broken. It's embarrassing sometimes. I can't lie. I imagine what it'd be like to have a kid who actually makes sense when he opens his mouth. That was the one that almost broke me when I first read it. Because it wasn't just some frustrated offhand comment. It wasn't just cruel. It was calculated. I had lived under his roof for 22 years. And all that time, while he was giving me pep talks about getting out there and being a man, he was telling someone else he wished he had a different son. I stopped reading. The room stayed still. Jason was staring down at his plate. Uncle Bill was blinking like he'd woken up in the middle of someone else's dream. Nobody said a word. I finally turned the tablet off, set it in the middle of the table, and walked out. I didn't go to my room. I went outside. Just walked up the block. There's this small park 2 streets over where I used to go when I was younger, after arguments or bad test days, or when my voice just stopped working in front of people. I sat on the bench near the old fountain, watched the leaves fall, and just let the silence do what it needed to. No one called. No one chased after me. And that was fine. Because after what I'd just read out loud, I wasn't the one who needed to explain himself anymore. I didn't go back home until the porch lights were on. The house looked different somehow. Not in a physical way, but like something had shifted beneath the walls. Like the foundation had cracked, and the house knew it. When I stepped inside, it was quiet. No clinking dishes. No mumbling TV in the background. Just the sound of someone pacing upstairs. Jason was in the living room, sitting on the floor with his back against the couch. He looked up as I walked in, but didn't say anything right away. Finally, he asked, "Did you know all that before tonight?" I nodded once. He leaned his head back and let out a breath. She looked like she'd been shot. Man. I know. He sat in silence for a moment, then added, "She hasn't said a word since she went upstairs." He tried talking to her. Then she locked the guest room door. That got my attention. The guest room. Jason nodded. "She's not sleeping in their room tonight." She packed a bag. I stood there in the entryway, watching the staircase like it might move on its own. Then Jason said, quietly, "You were right to do it." He didn't say it like it was obvious. He said it like it cost him to admit it. And coming from him, that meant more than I could explain. Because for most of our lives, Jason had looked up to our dad the way little brothers always do. He mimicked his posture, repeated his phrases, chased his approval like it was oxygen. But now, that mask was shattered, and neither of us knew what came next. I went up to my room and waited. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter in my mom's handwriting. It wasn't dramatic. Just a few lines scribbled on a notepad. "Taking a few days. Don't worry about me. Please be careful what else you read. Love you." She hadn't signed it. Just "love you." Like it was enough. Like it was all she could manage. I didn't see my dad that morning. Or the next. His car was gone by the time I came downstairs. I assumed he went to work. Or maybe to Vanessa. Or maybe just somewhere no one could look him in the eye. By day 3, I started to wonder if he was even coming back. That night, I came home from a walk to find Jason in the kitchen, staring at something on his phone. He looked up and said, "Did you know who Vanessa is?" My stomach tightened. "No," I said. "Just her first name." "What?" He turned the phone toward me. "A Facebook profile. Vanessa Caldwell. Married. 2 kids. Lives 3 towns over." Her cover photo was a 4th of July barbecue. The man beside her, grinning, was wearing a company shirt with my dad's company logo. I leaned in. "That's his coworker," Jason said. "Gary Caldwell. Dad talks about him all the time." I stared at the photo, stunned. The caption read, "Grateful for 12 years with my best friend. Here's to forever." That meant Vanessa wasn't just some random woman. She was married. To a man who worked beside my father. Who probably had no idea what was going on. I felt sick. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a powder keg. 2 families. 4 kids. A whole web of people with no idea they were one text away from watching everything burn. I took a screenshot and sent it to myself. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet. But I wasn't letting this get buried. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized something. My dad hadn't just destroyed our family. He'd put someone else's family on a collision course too. And no one, not Jason, not my mom, not Vanessa's husband, had the full picture. But I did. And the question was, what the hell was I going to do with it? For 2 days, I couldn't stop thinking about his face. Gary Caldwell, Vanessa's husband, smiling next to her in that Facebook cover photo like nothing in the world could touch him. His arm wrapped around her waist. Their 2 kids in front of them, grinning, holding sparklers. That was the photo that got me. Because it wasn't posed. It wasn't curated like so many others. It was real. And that made it so much worse. Every time I saw my dad fake a smile, it was stiff, performative, smug. But Gary? He looked like a man who actually believed his life was solid. He didn't know. I tried to put it away. Tried to forget I'd seen the photo, forget the name. But I couldn't. Not when I was the only one who knew how deep this thing really went. Not when I had proof sitting on a flash drive under my mattress. And not when I saw my mom's name light up on my phone 2 mornings later. It was just a text. "I'm back. Can we talk later? Just you and me." My heart started pounding. She came back quietly. No drama. No shouting. No packed bags on the porch. She slipped into the house sometime that morning and went straight to the bedroom. Didn't even open the door when my dad came home that night. I know, because I listened. They didn't fight. That's what terrified me. So when she asked to talk, I said yes without hesitation. We sat on the back deck around 9 p.m. The yard was dark, the air cool, and everything felt a little too still. She brought out a glass of water for herself and nothing for me, which somehow made it worse. Like she wasn't in mom mode. Like I wasn't a kid anymore. This was woman to man. "I read through some of the emails," she said. I straight ahead. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to. But I did. I needed to see it for myself. She sipped the water, then placed the glass down on the armrest. I knew something was off for a while, but I kept finding ways to justify it. Stress. Work. Me. You. Anything but what it really was. She paused. "But you reading those messages out loud? That stripped away all the pretending." I didn't say anything. Just waited. She looked at me and added, "I'm not mad at you, Evan. I'm grateful." That caught me off guard. You could have kept it to yourself. Or dropped it on me in private. But you read it to him. In front of everyone. And that's the only reason he listened. The only reason he didn't twist it. I exhaled. "I didn't do it to hurt you." "I know," she said quickly. "That's why it hurt less. Because it was truth. Not revenge." She stood and picked up her glass. Before heading back inside, she said, "Whatever you decide to do next, I trust you." That stuck with me. Because that was the first time in a long time that anyone in this house had trusted me with anything. The next day, I emailed Gary Caldwell. I didn't want to do it recklessly. This wasn't about vengeance anymore. This was about giving another person the same gift I'd just given my mom. The truth. No spin. No delay. Just what he deserved to know. I created a new burner Gmail account. Wrote it carefully. Subject line. Something you should see. No tricks. No spam. Hi Gary. I know this will come as a shock, and I don't expect you to believe me right away. My name is Evan. I'm the son of the man your wife has been having an affair with. His name is David. You work together. I have email records between them going back years. I'm not asking for anything. Just giving you the chance to see it for yourself, the way I gave my own mother that chance. If you want proof, respond. I'll send it. If not, I'll never bother you again. I'm sorry, Evan. I expected silence. Maybe rage. Maybe denial. But the reply came 5 hours later. Send it. That was it. So I did. Screenshots. Photos. Email threads. The same carefully curated folder I had shown my mom, now repackaged for another life about to split open. He didn't respond that night. Or the next day. And for a moment, I thought maybe he'd just gone dark. Maybe he decided to pretend. Sweep it under the rug like so many people do when the truth is too heavy. But then, around 8 p.m. the following night, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. His voice was calm, measured, almost frighteningly composed. Evan, this is Gary Caldwell. I saw everything. Thank you for showing me. I'm handling it on my end. I won't involve you unless necessary. I'm sorry your father did this to your family. You did the right thing. That's all he said. Then he hung up. And just like that, I knew. The match had been dropped on the other side of the bridge. That same night, I noticed something strange. My dad's LinkedIn profile? Gone. His bio and photo vanished from the company website. No farewell post. No, moved on to new opportunities. Just erased. The next morning, he didn't go to work. He didn't leave the house. He sat in the living room for 3 straight hours. No TV. No laptop. Just sitting. I walked past once. He didn't look up. And that silence told me everything. Gary hadn't just confronted Vanessa. He'd gone straight to the top. And my dad had been fired. I didn't ask questions. Neither did my mom. But that same afternoon, I noticed she was suddenly packing boxes in the garage. Not her things, his golf clubs, old records, office junk, even some of his tools. She didn't label them, just taped them shut and stacked them by the door. She didn't raise her voice, didn't cry. She just moved through the space like someone who had already made a decision weeks ago and was now finally following through. The only words she said to him that day, make sure you're gone by Sunday. He nodded, didn't argue, didn't apologize. He knew. I stood outside his door later that night, thinking about whether I should say anything. Some part of me still wanted to ask why. Why he did it. Why he said those things about me. Why he let it go on for so long. But I never knocked. Because I already knew what his answer would be. He'd spin it. Or shrug. Or worse, try to blame someone else. And I was done letting him narrate my life. So I walked away. Sunday morning came with a strange kind of stillness. I woke up earlier than usual, not because of an alarm, but because the silence in the house felt intentional. Like something had been drained from the walls overnight. Like the air knew it was the last morning we'd all share this roof. When I came downstairs, the boxes were gone. So was his car. No note. No announcement. Just absence. I stood in the kitchen staring at the empty spot in the driveway, trying to process it. He was just gone. After everything. After 22 years of storming through this house, like he owned the air we breathed. He left without a single word to me. Or so I thought. An hour later, I checked my phone and saw it. Voicemail. One new message. My stomach twisted. I hadn't even heard it ring. It was from a private number. No transcript. Just a timestamp. I stared at it for 5 minutes before hitting play. His voice came through, low and tired. Not slurred, but slower than usual. Like it cost him something to speak. I know you think you've won something. Maybe you have. I don't expect you to understand why I did what I did. I don't even care if you ever talk to me again. Just know this. I built this family. I paid for everything. I gave you the tools. And you? You threw it all away to make a point. Congratulations. There was a pause. Then, she's not coming back to me. I know that now. So whatever sense of victory you're feeling, enjoy it. It won't last. Click. That was it. No apology. No remorse. Just bitterness wrapped in a weak justification. I listened twice. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to be sure. And what I felt after that second listen wasn't rage. It wasn't even disappointment. It was relief. He was still the same man. Still believed control meant love. Still thought being the provider gave him the right to define everyone else's worth. But not anymore. I walked upstairs, pulled the flash drive from under my mattress, and snapped it in half. Then I deleted the folder off my laptop. I didn't need it anymore. The truth had already done its job. Over the next week, the house settled into something new. My mom started going on walks again, long ones. She rearranged the living room, repainted the guest bathroom, donated bags of his clothes without a word. Jason and I barely talked about it. Not because we were avoiding it, but because we didn't need to. There was no drama left to unpack. We were just adjusting, breathing different air now. A week after my dad left, my mom knocked on my door and asked if I wanted to get lunch with her. Just the two of us. We went to this little place near the lake she used to love before things got heavy at home. She ordered pasta. I got a sandwich. We ate mostly in silence until she set her fork down and looked at me. You've always been stronger than he gave you credit for. I didn't respond. He saw your stutter and mistook it for weakness. But what you did, reading those emails, that took a kind of strength I don't think I ever had. She looked out the window. You didn't just stand up to him for yourself. You did it for me too. For all the times I didn't. I wasn't sure what to say to that. So I just nodded. Then she smiled. You know, you speak clearer now. That caught me off guard. What? Since that night, you haven't tripped over your words once. I hadn't noticed. But she was right. The weight that used to sit on my chest every time I opened my mouth, it wasn't there anymore. Not completely gone, but lighter. Like my voice finally belonged to me. A month later, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, "You're braver than me." It was from Gary Caldwell. He didn't say much. Just that things had changed drastically on his end. That he and his kids were okay. That he'd spoken to Vanessa's family and taken steps to make sure she wouldn't do this to anyone else again. Then he wrote, "You did something most people wouldn't have had the courage to do. You lit the match. I only hope you keep that fire when the next storm comes. Because it will." He ended it with, "I hope we never meet. But if we do, I'll shake your hand." I didn't reply, but I saved the message. Not as a trophy, just as a reminder that telling the truth doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it's messy, awkward, miserable. Sometimes it makes you feel like the villain. But sometimes it's the only thing that can break the silence. 2 months after he left, my dad texted me. "Can we talk?" Just that. No hey, no name, no apology. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked the number. Because there wasn't anything left to say. I had already spoken the most important words of my life. And this time, he was the one left stuttering. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day. And trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.